Have you ever witnessed someone's world crumble, piece by piece, as though time itself had slowed? I have. In fact, I orchestrated it. Right now, I'm seated in my parked car, positioned just across the street from LeBlanc, the priciest restaurant in town. Through the expansive windows, I have a clear view of my wife, Jessica. She's sitting there with Howard, her lover. She's wearing the sleek black dress I bought for her just last month for our anniversary. The bitter irony isn't lost on me. Her laugh carries across the room, polished and rehearsed, much like the lie she's been living. A quick glance at my phone shows it's 8:15 p.m. Everything is perfectly aligned. Soon, her carefully constructed facade will collapse. But for now, I simply observe. Jessica looks breathtaking tonight. She always does when she's meeting him. Her dark hair cascades in soft waves, catching the restaurant's golden lighting. She's wearing that smile, the one I once believed was meant only for me. Across the table, Howard leans in close, likely whispering something charming. His watch gleams under the light, a pricey accessory gifted to him by his wife. Of course, Jessica doesn't know about her. Not yet. My finger hovers over the send button. The message is brief. Enjoy this evening, because it will end sooner than you think. I press send, and moments later, her phone vibrates on the table. Did you catch it? That slight flicker in her expression, the barely perceptible crack in her perfect mask. She reads the message, and a glimmer of unease creeps into her eyes. Howard remains oblivious, too preoccupied with his own charm to notice the tremor in Jessica's hand as she sets her phone down. He's blissfully unaware that his life is also about to implode. At another table, just a few feet away, Jessica's relatives sit quietly, her uncle, cousin, and sister. They've said nothing and haven't so much as glanced in her direction. But they're here for a reason, an integral piece of my plan. I send another message. Did you really think no one would uncover this? Jessica's composure falters further. Her eyes dart around the room, searching, her wine glass trembling slightly as she lifts it to her lips. The night has only just begun, and yet, she's already unraveling. Exactly as I planned. Revenge isn't about dramatic confrontations or fiery arguments. No, true revenge is watching someone suffocate under the weight of their own lies, one deliberate moment at a time. Tonight, Jessica will learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. Would you like to know how this began? How I uncovered their affair? And most importantly, how I meticulously crafted a plan to dismantle not just their relationship, but their entire lives. Let me take you back to the beginning, the moment my trust was shattered and the seeds of retribution were sown. It all started with a scent. 1 month ago, Jessica returned home late, claiming she'd been out to dinner with friends. The clock read 11:45 p.m., but something was off. When she leaned in to kiss me goodnight, I noticed it immediately, a cologne I didn't recognize. Expensive. Masculine. Hermes, if I wasn't mistaken. I knew the fragrance because I'd once considered buying it for myself, but ultimately didn't. Yet there it was, lingering on her clothes. Most men might have confronted her then and there, demanding answers, shouting accusations. But I'm not like most men. 2 decades in corporate law have taught me a valuable lesson. Patience reveals what impulsiveness conceals. So I said nothing. I kissed her back and watched as she retreated to the bathroom. That night, I lay awake, my thoughts racing. 6 years of marriage. Promises exchanged. Dreams of building a family together. All of it, perhaps, undone by a single, unfamiliar scent. Instead of confronting her, I chose to observe. And, oh, what a performance I witnessed in the weeks that followed. Jessica thought she was being clever, deleting messages, taking calls in the next room, always placing her phone face down. But it was the little things she overlooked that gave her away. The way she'd smile at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The sudden attention to her appearance for client meetings that didn't exist. The extra hour at the gym that her fitness app failed to record. I started keeping track. Tuesday, 7 p.m., dinner with Sarah, she said. But Sarah posted photos of herself at a family gathering across town. Friday, 2 p.m., client meeting, Yet, her office confirmed there were no appointments scheduled. The lies piled up like evidence in a case I never wanted to build. Then came the credit card statements told a story Jessica thought she had buried. Charges at LeBlanc, high-end shops uptown, a trendy hotel bar, all during times she claimed to be somewhere else. Each discovery cut deep, but I kept my emotions in check, maintaining the facade of a trusting husband to perfection. I decided to hire a private investigator, not because I doubted the affair, but because I needed specifics. Howard's name surfaced almost immediately. A fellow corporate lawyer, much like me, but one with a reputation for recklessness. Married, I learned, to the daughter of a wealthy real estate mogul. Howard had more to lose than Jessica could ever imagine. The betrayal stung, of course, but it also ignited something within me, a calculated coldness I typically reserved for high-stakes legal battles. As I collected the evidence, a plan started taking shape. Not just to reveal their affair, but to completely dismantle the fragile worlds they had built, all in a single, meticulously planned evening. If they wanted to play games, I would show them how a real strategist operates. Mike. Jessica's voice broke into my thoughts one evening. Is everything okay? You've seemed distant lately. I returned her smile, the same empty smile she gave her secret messages. Everything's fine, I replied, knowing soon it really would be. Revenge, like justice, is most satisfying when served cold. Oddly enough, the hardest part wasn't discovering her infidelity, it was pretending I hadn't. For weeks, I honed my performance as the oblivious husband while working in the shadows, moving the pieces of my plan into place like a seasoned chess player. Timing was everything. First, I reached out to her family. Her Uncle James, who had been more of a father figure to Jessica after her parents passed, seemed like the logical starting point. One morning, I invited him for coffee, bringing along a thick manila envelope. As I slid the contents across the table, photographs of Jessica and Howard entering hotels, receipts from restaurants, logs of their text messages, I kept my tone steady. I wish I didn't have to show you this, I said. James's hands trembled as he examined each piece of evidence. His voice, heavy with disappointment, barely broke the silence. She's following in her mother's footsteps. Jessica's mother had torn their family apart years ago with a similar affair. History was repeating itself. I need your help, I said, watching the weight of my words sink in. Not to fix my marriage, it's beyond repair, but to make her understand that actions have consequences. I laid out the entire plan, observing as his anger morphed into reluctant understanding. Within hours, James had rallied Jessica's closest family members. Her sister, Emma, her cousin, David, and his wife. All of them agreed to play their parts perfectly. No confrontations, no scenes. Just their silent presence at LeBlanc that evening, a quiet judgment more devastating than any words could. Ever be. Next on my list was Howard's wife, Scarlett. That step required more subtlety. Instead of confronting her directly, I anonymously delivered evidence of Howard's infidelity, not just with Jessica, but with 3 other women. Scarlett, as it turned out, controlled the financial strings in their marriage. Howard's luxurious lifestyle, his professional connections, even his career were all tethered to her family's influence. The day before everything was set to unfold, I made another critical move. I visited our apartment's leasing office. Since the lease was solely in my name, terminating it was easy. Within an hour, I had the paperwork finalized, with the termination effective immediately. The property manager, sympathetic to my situation, expedited the process when I casually mentioned infidelity. That evening, Jessica prepared for yet another rendezvous. I watched as she packed an overnight bag. Another business trip? I asked, feigning casual curiosity. Just dinner with some clients, she lied effortlessly, flashing a practiced smile. Don't wait up. As she leaned in to kiss me goodbye, I pulled her close and murmured, "Wear that black dress?" She laughed softly, mistaking my words for affection. She didn't know it would be the last time she'd wear it under my roof. "I think you'd look stunning in that dress," I had said, watching her reaction closely. Her eyes lit up with a mix of guilt and anticipation, a dangerous cocktail of emotions she thought I couldn't see. "You're right," she replied, her voice sweet and casual, as though nothing was amiss. As she walked away, I finalized the last piece of my plan. A quick message confirmed dinner reservations at LeBlanc, 2 tables, one for Jessica and her lover, and another for her family. Then, I called the movers, ensuring they would arrive the next morning to collect the neatly packed boxes I'd prepared in advance. Everything was in motion. Tomorrow, Jessica would discover that the most devastating revenge is not delivered in fury, but with unrelenting silence. The stage was ready, the players were in place, and now all that remained was to watch the show unfold. Through the restaurant's window, I observed Jessica nervously checking her phone for what must have been the 100th time. Her carefully maintained composure betrayed subtle cracks as her manicured fingers trembled against the screen. The first message I sent struck like a lightning bolt. "The truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it?" Howard, sitting across from her, was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. Midway through recounting a story about his latest courtroom success, he remained oblivious to the shift in Jessica's demeanor. The second message followed quickly. "Take a look to your left. Family is everything, isn't it?" I saw the exact moment she noticed them. Her Uncle James, Sister Emma, Cousin David, and his wife were seated just 3 tables away. Their expressions bore no anger, only quiet disappointment, a far more cutting blow than words could ever deliver. Jessica's hand trembled so violently that she had to set her wine glass down. "Everything okay, beautiful?" Howard asked, clueless as always, his grin still intact. Then came the third message. "Did you think no one would uncover the truth about the hotel meetings?" Jessica's face turned ghostly pale. Her eyes darted nervously to her family, but they refused to meet her gaze, their silent judgment more deafening than any argument. Meanwhile, Howard's phone buzzed. The message he received was curt but damning. "Check your email. Be home in 20 minutes. His wife had finally caught up with him. I watched as his smug confidence melted into panic. Opening his inbox, he was greeted with photos, receipts, and incriminating messages, not just of his affair with Jessica, but of his other entanglements. "I have to go," Howard stuttered, rising abruptly. The once charismatic lawyer was reduced to a frantic mess, grasping for an escape. "Howard, wait." Jessica reached for his hand, desperation and confusion mingling in her voice. But he didn't stop. Tossing some cash on the table, he left without even sparing her a glance, his steps hurried as though he could outrun the disaster unraveling around him. Jessica's phone lit up with my next message. "Looks like your knight in shining armor just jumped ship." Her family rose from their table in unison, the sound of their chairs scraping the floor amplifying the tension. They walked past her slowly, not a word exchanged. Each step away was a silent condemnation. Emma paused briefly at Jessica's table, placing a small envelope next to her glass. Inside was the photo I'd provided, Jessica and Howard, captured in a passionate embrace outside a luxury hotel. Jessica's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped her phone as she read my final message. "Don't bother coming home. Your belongings are already packed." I remained parked outside, watching as her carefully curated facade crumbled completely. Tears streaked her flawless makeup as she fumbled to call Howard, only to hear his number was blocked. Her hands trembled as she struggled to settle the bill, her entire world unraveling piece by calculated piece. Before leaving, I sent one last message. "The lease is cancelled. You have until tomorrow to collect your things." As I drove away, I caught one final glimpse of her in my rearview mirror. The self-assured woman who once thought she could outplay me was now a shattered figure, slumped in her seat, utterly defeated. True revenge doesn't burn with fury. It freezes with precision and patience. And mine? Mine was colder than ice. Absolute zero.